Okay. I'm going to do this because it'll be a little lesson from. This is on a video, and I can't always wait for them to come up. But I ordered a part for this motorcycle. This will be a little lesson in life. This is the part that I had to replace. On eBay, I bought one for $30. At the Yamaha shop, which I just went to, they want like 120. They would also have had to order it. But when I ordered this part for this is a fuel shut-off and turn-on valve. That's what was leaking on my motorcycle. When I ordered it, it looked like they sent me the wrong part. But what you can do, if people are mechanics, and I'm not a mechanic, but I've done kind of stuff like this before, it was like just the little year model was 1 year off, which was my mistake. But it mounted on. And if it mounts on, and it has two lines, one is your fuel line, and the other I thought was a vacuum line, and I was correct, because I had to just look it up online. Now that's the new one I put in. I don't know if you can see, I had to actually cut something just now. But even though I ordered like a 1981 and the motorcycle's a 1980, I also had bought a battery for a 1981 at Walmart, and I had to take it back. I've had that battery for like 6 months, and I put acid in it and charged it. And then I realized the reason, more than likely, I got the wrong part, which I still adapted. It had the fuel lines coming out the other side of the fuel, it's called a petcock. Well, I thought, oh, I can just route it around, which I just showed you. Not really a big deal. And the other vacuum line, it's got two lines going in, one going in, one coming out. But the interesting thing was, for all intents and purposes, the way I rigged it, and I'm not going to put a new one in, though I just ordered another one for like $8 because I realized I had the wrong year. But I had changed a lot of fuel line and all. And on the fuel valve, as long as it was able to go to what's called the on position, this one I just cut off. It's probably laying on the floor. But this one, when you turn it all the way down, it used to have a handle. I just cut it off now. I had to buy a Dremel tool to cut it. If you turned it down, it went into the on position. And that's all I really needed. But then if you turned it this way, it's supposed to be like reserve. And then it has another thing. And I even looked it up because normally you have an on, a reserve, and then you have a shut-off. But this had something called PRI, and they've explained it online. But either way, even though I adapted it, I got it to run. Now, initially, when I first put it in, it wouldn't run. And I thought, well, it should adapt. The older vehicles and the older motorcycles, you can kind of do that stuff. Newer things today, you have to have exact parts. And then I was going to get another, which I just ordered one, but I'm not going to put the new one in because this will work. But as I had the switch on the on position, there's also the reserve, and then there's also the other position. And it has an arrow showing which way it is. And after adapting everything, I didn't need to really cut that fuel switch off, that little handle, unless I had to go to the other position, which is almost like an off position. And I figured I'll never have to put it in the off position. And after going through buying, I just bought this tool set. I needed a Dremel tool because I had to cut the handle off, the little fuel handle. I said, I've done, just about all I could do to adapt this bike. But for some reason, I have gas in the tank, and I try to always keep it on the reserve position. That means it'll get the lowest gas, okay? That's what it means on a motorcycle. So if you put it on, and you run out of fuel on the highway, that's kind of a safety. You put it on reserve. But a lot of people just leave it on reserve. But I had both working, reserve and on. They were both pointing the correct way. There's an even arrow on the handle. Some bikes, it's... And then I said the only other thing I could imagine why it's not getting fuel. And being I rerouted the fuel line, you would think first thing came to my mind is, man, the fuel line's not routed right. I got the fuel filter in wrong. But it was a big process. And I said the only other thing I can imagine is they misnumbered, mislabeled that fuel petcock, meaning where it says off, it really means on. That was my last option. But the only way I could get it to the so-called off position was I had to cut the little fuel handle off because that part would not adapt. You couldn't go all the way up that way. And I thought, I'm adapting a lot here. And after all the little things I did on it, rerouting it, and it's got fuel in the tank, I putting a new battery in, but I jump-started it with the car, which you shouldn't do. I said, that's the only thing. Maybe it's human error. Even though I ordered the wrong part, even though I adapted it, my last option is buy a little Dremel tool where you can cut the handle off. And sure enough, that was it. I was upset somewhat because I thought my dealings with getting the part and all, I thought they sent me the wrong things. And my human error was I was giving the wrong year. And it's frustrating to me because back in the old days, I liked doing a lot of this. But then you got to go through the next step. And I don't like riding. I had to go to the motorcycle shop Monday when I realized I'll leave this one in, but I'm going to go get another one. And they were closed on Monday. And I ride fast when I'm upset. When I bought that tool out of Walmart, $25 for that little tool. And then the beeper goes off when you leave the door because they didn't. And I was mad. And I'm leaving the garden section. I went back in. I said, look, I said, this, and oh, we'll check it. I walked back out the gate. The beeper went off again. I turned around and said, they knew I was mad. They said, oh, no, you can just leave. A lot of frustration, okay? And I wanted to give you this little update because the little lesson I was going to say was sometimes when you're adapting things and you're going through processes, a lot of people, they will take a motorcycle to a shop or they'll get particular things. But I had to realize this, back in the old days, doing these little things, that wasn't really a big thing to adapt that. But there was a few little things that you could question, which I did. I said, man, I wonder if just the fact that I had this fuel line routed a different way, I said, I wonder if that affects why it's not getting fuel. The reason it wasn't getting fuel was the aftermarket part I bought was mislabeled. The stop is really the on, or the reserve, one or the other. So, we get frustrated. And when I first started having problems with it, I'll be honest, I was thinking, I don't even need to. It's like a little thing I wanted to have. It's cheap to keep because it's $80 a year insurance. For the whole year, liability insurance for a motorcycle. I've had them before. You say $80 is the insurance? Yes, because liability only covers damage to the other party. If you're in a car wreck, and look, motorcycles, when they're in wrecks, you don't usually damage the person in the car. A lot of times people get killed on the bikes. So that's why liability is only covering the other person, not the rider. That's why it's so cheap. So that'll be the little lesson. I guess I'll put it on Facebook right now. But I'll be honest, I was frustrated. And I was thinking, I said, well, I went this far. I'm not going to put the other parts coming, the actual part. But after doing that, I'm going to leave it. And, but I ran into a friend of mine saw me at Walmart. and they could tell when I'm upset. And one of them was waiting outside. They must have saw me inside, and John, I said, man, I can't talk right now. So, that's the lesson from the motorcycle. And we'll see what happens. Roy Moore, a little update. Roy Moore, the very hotly contested Senate race in Alabama, he lost to Doug Jones, the Democrat. It's probably better that way, at least in my view. There's a lot of news things that are also going on, and I would just say that some are calling for the accusers of Trump, and rightfully so, if they want to come out. The thing that we also got to remember is there were a few cases I talked about the last few years here, and these were people that got sent up supposedly for rape and kidnapping and all. And as I followed those cases in the media, you could see in some of them, it's in one that the girl lied on the stand about a lot of things. Evidence showed. They still convicted that particular man. And so we want to do what's right. But if you do have people, there was a famous case here. His name is Judge Jack Hunter, a good man, a judge for many years here. And he had a girlfriend. I think her name was Boss, B-O-S or B-O-S-S or something. Trish Boss, maybe, could be wrong. But this case was, she called the police to tell the cops that her husband, or boyfriend, Jack Hunter, tried to kill himself and shot himself in the head, which is very sad. But the cops listened later to the 911 call, and in the background, they heard Judge Jack Hunter, who the girlfriend assumed was dead, saying, "That's a lie." I'm sure she didn't realize. She thought he was dead when she called. Then they found out that she tried to kill Jack Hunter. And then she went to trial, rightfully. I remember as they were coming in out of court, I watched that on the media and all, they just reported that she kind of reached out to Jack Hunter, the man she tried to murder. Said, "Oh no, you really tried to shoot yourself or whatever." But the history of that woman was she also used the court system against a previous ex-husband during a divorce case. And she had her younger daughter, claimed that the husband had sexually molested her. And in a lot of divorce cases and all that, that's one of the biggest false accusations in the history of, you look at jurisprudence. One of the biggest ones happens to be that. So we don't want to make the mistake that everybody, if you look at the very infamous lacrosse team case, those boys were kind of set up, very famous case. A girl who had problems and she was kind of a stripper, and these college kids had her Duke lacrosse team. But as the case progressed, the prosecutor's name was Mike Nifong. And the kids were innocent. The college kids, their lives had been ruined. There's a documentary on it. But they showed during the case that the prosecutor by the name of Mike Nifong, he knew. And there were people within his prosecutor's office that knew. But he was running for re-election. And he said, let's just get that accusation out there and let's try these boys. Eventually that case was thrown out. So you got to be very careful. I think Trump probably did do a lot of, because he said it on that Billy Bush video, okay? And how much Mr. Judge Roy Moore, who lost, how many of those things are true, we don't know. But remember, you want to make sure you speak the truth on all these things. You don't just jump into, because right now that's what's happening in the sense of this country with the media figures, Matt Lauer and others. All right? I'll just do this one. So it was a big process. And the odds of after rigging all that up, the odds of them just mislabeling on and off, and me cutting that part to say maybe they mislabeled it. And I would have thought that'd be the last thing after me rigging everything up and all, thinking, well, it's on the on position. Could they have gotten it wrong? They did. The aftermarket product was wrong, and so we're done with the motorcycle. God bless.